going to briefly, on the screen, I've shared with you the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that you were mentioning. The projects that we're dealing with now are focused on food, of course, which is Sustainable Development Goal number 2. But of course, all the goals are related. So number 1 is no more poverty. Number 3 is well-being and good health. So I do want to commend, again, everything we're doing here that does have implications on the global scale as well as the local scale. Okay, Mr. Nelson, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. What a great conversation. You know, I'd like to start maybe with a little comments and just, you know, confirmation about some of the information that we've received today. You know, I've been involved in some community planning, you know, on the periphery of community, you know, engagement. Keith Alexander and the what did they call the Chevron, you know, Chevron system of engagement with communities. And so I appreciate what Michael's doing in terms of capturing and creating a systematic approach, you know, to these efforts, which should be everywhere, you know, every community. And the problem is, of course, that the people who can do it or teach it or guide it, you know, are far and few between. And I would say that, you know, most universities are actually not teaching these methodologies, and the methodologies are critical. Without the methodology, you know, you really have a slow progress. And of course, now we can have big data. We can capture this information, share it. A lot of people are afraid of big data. But, you know, we're global. We are a global village, right? We are a global community. Also, to comment also about that we could have these kind of sessions with, you know, and silo, you know, that we'd have a Western team and an Eastern team or an African teams. And I think that this coming together is a very positive thing. And the, you know, the cross fertilization of ideas and cultures is important to what we need to do. Now, in terms of, you know, how communities can actually transform themselves, because I think that is our purpose. And we also recognize that we do not have a long time to effectuate, you know, real transformation, and it cannot be small pockets of examples. And we have many of those. There are many eco-villages. I have visited so many around the world, you know, in my travels, and they're all looking to be sustainable, organic, off-grid, real communities of people sharing, you know, people coming together with heart. I see that in Mufadal's, you know, objectives, and we'll see that in any indigenous communities as well. You know, when we connect and work with any indigenous and Aboriginal people, you know, in the Western world, we're a product of colonial powers and plantation economies and all kind of, you know, dominating nature, dominating people. So, you know, we're at a disadvantage in terms of where we're at right now. We're isolated from nature. This is a fact. You know, we have our disconnect from each other, which is, you know, communities have been already dismantled by, you know, a sort of a socialization process, turning us into consumers. So now we have to all become more producers, you know, have a producer economy, as I would like to call it, in which we regain our sense of sovereignty over our lives, you know, our sense that we don't have control anymore of our lives because we're so dependent on a supply chain. So then we've had discussion about supply chain, you know, today in the conversation. And in many ways it's very attractive, you know, for innovation to try to attach itself to a supply chain. But if you're an innovator and that supply chain is going to be disrupted, that supply chain will stomp on you and prevent you from implementing true innovation, because that supply chain is exploiting the people. It is depending on a consumerist, structure. So as we innovate, my principal goal is to break the supply chain. So, when we have discussion about how we fit the supply chain, for me, I'm a bit of an outlier. So I'll say that right, from the beginning. As an inventor, I suppose, that comes with the territory. So if you can forgive me for, having that, potential impact. And then also a comment from Lloyd about, tools can be used as for good or for bad. I think that technology is mostly feared today, because technology has been appropriated by military, by our sort of warfare economy. And most of what we see in technology is actually designed in some ways to be destructive. So, sometimes on the surface it looks positive, but if you look a little bit deeper, someone is suffering as we implement the technology. Oftentimes, like we have our concerns about 5G. Yes, we're polluting the atmosphere, which as we evolved had none of that radiation. And now people don't realize how intense that radiation is. So we have people who are being called conspiracy theorists because they're concerned about something invisible, something that the corporations introduce to make money without any conscious, sort of, is this really good for people? The same thing is happening in food. So, as we come back into, I would say my turf sort of thing is the food. And I've chosen, to focus on food, although my inventions are about controlled environment for producing food. So, we get more into what's under, like the core of my activity is about creating the buildings and creating the climate control, even though the outcome is most important is food. So how did that all come about? I've always had this intuitive understanding of what we could call it greenhouses, any kind of indoor growing. And I've also, from my earliest approach to this, felt that natural light is the key. We have a lot of people talking about lamps, people focused on lamp energy. This is no doubt one of the almost like criminal diversions of people's thinking and universities' focus and money investment as well, because there is no way in which life, should be sustained by other than sunlight. Man-made is always an effort to monetize. We love to with artificial fertilizers, synthetic fertilizer, when we know that these are incomplete and cannot replicate. We think we solve food problems by tampering with the code of life. And what we're doing is we're corrupting that code of life. And the corruption is like any computer program, right? If you don't really know what you're doing and you just go in and you tamper with some code, there's unending ripple effects that will make that ineffective and destructive. So we have to be applying science and technology very carefully in today's modern, capabilities as compared to where we were even, decades ago. But our consciousness seems not to be up to the challenge of differentiating, how to use the tool. So as you said, Lloyd, any tool can be damaging or could be constructive. You could build a building with a hammer, sure. So it is very constructive. I think that I would like to put my technology in a category of technology that Buckminster described as livingry. I coined the word, and it has been adopted to some extent, but Livingry is a man-made tool that has only the effect of increasing life. In other words, can we conceive of such things? Well, we live in a world so full of hurt and damage and destruction that it's hard to think about that. I have wondered sometimes if liquid bubbles, my invention for insulation, could ever be utilized for bad. For someone, what could you do with this thing that would be really damaging? I like to think of my buildings as living structures, right? That is the concept that we're aiming for. Living a structure that is at home in nature, that could stand like a tree in the middle of the forest and would be indistinguishable, that Aboriginal people would love, that anyone whose heart is open would immediately fall in love with it and say, wow, what a space. Now, would it look like anything we've ever built? Maybe not. Culturally, adaptations, we do have to be sensitive, of course. Yet at the same time, we need a great transition. And I could just say that in architecture, what we have in our architecture is strong towers and high walls. And our homes are a barrier to some, some people say, oh, you can come through the walls at night. You can walk through bubbles. There's no hard surface here. Is it truly a safe space? But of course, that assumes that people want to do harm. And I think we have to also put that aside. If we're always assuming there's an enemy, if we're always assuming someone's out there to do harm to us, then we're in that frame of mind, fearful frame of mind. This is the frame of mind in which we're exploited. So we have to be courageous enough to, with the stick, sticks and stones won't my bones. I'm doing a little, anyway. So yes, a structure that is fabric and is a soft skin, and I like the word skin, the envelope of the building or the canopy. So the structure looks like a tree, as I mentioned, and it has a canopy and it has an enclosure, yes, with these transparent fabric materials. Fabrics are very much ancient technology, and yet we have modern embodiments of the technology, and these are available and ready to deploy, and I have been using them for 4 years. In fact, in my lifetime, I've worked with the companies developing this fabric. I went, asked them, can you create transparent fabric?
Richard.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Any questions?
Are there any questions before we move on to Aubrey's presentation?
Yes, Michael. I'd like to thank Richard for, thinking large and bringing some of these concepts into the narrative, especially soft structures, inflatable structures. These concepts that he's talking about, they're really well researched in terms of the human sensibility. And NASA is doing a lot of research for what these ideas are that Richard's so cavalierly putting up there. And so I think it's important when you think of village, you think of space, you think of building, you really have to think clearly about this interface between the natural system and the man-made system. And it's not trivial, believe me. This is a very sensitive interface, and a lot of, I believe, what Richard's talking about, the insensibility or the inhumanity that we see out there is a product of the construction of our physical environment. So when you talk about building these things, how do you, what was asked earlier, how do you measure this sensibility within our population? So I think it's really good that this team takes that language very, very seriously. So I want to put that out there.
Typically, these are small. they typically would be at universities or schools. And they would engage the community, and they would demonstrate innovation, if we want to. I mean, obviously they could be projects that are not particularly innovative, but if they do include solar, that would bring a certain element of innovation. And it is an element that is ready for this kind of broad deployment, because yes, we've built lots of these projects. The technology is mature, and it's for 10 times less effort. And so SolaRoof falls in that category. So, and when we implement it, what it does is also brings hope that when we see straight line projections that things aren't going to work out, that we must always be open to game changers. The game changers do change the calculation. They enter into Michael's, modeling, and the modeling changes so radically that what we are perceiving as a hopeless, downward spiral becomes an opportunity. The downward spiral is if we don't change. The upward spiral is if we take action. And one of the worst cases is, yes, we do nothing. So we can do more of the same, right? Which is the downward spiral. We can do nothing, which we might hold, our position for a time. But what we really need to do is start to bring everyone to the table. And as I said, as an innovator, as a disruptor, it's hard to put that out there that you've got that solution. And of course, it needs to be tested. And I'm looking for worldwide, testing. So multiple POC projects, all with the same small, effective platform for testing.
Our time constraints, I would like to ask Aubrey if you could make your presentation now, Aubrey, and then we'll.
Okay. Yeah. How much time do I have?
At least 10 minutes.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Okay, yeah, because I'm so excited. I don't want to introduce myself, because you can just go to PyraPOD.com. Check the post. And every post, I have a brief introduction of myself. So I like just focus on what I do and how I started. Basically, I started by having this idea is of I want to grow my own food. See, I started from there. So I started to build a greenhouse, just buy the existing, traditional greenhouses for $100, right? And then I set up at the backyard, and it's at that time we rent the house, right? So I want to test some idea to be able to use the sun, the solar energy, because I work for a solar company. They are using the Japanese technology. Basically, they have a solar thermal. When we build a house, we incorporate this solar thermal, collection, storage, and right in the beginning, right on the drawing board, right? But anyway, that's the so that's why. So I constantly having this mindset of using the sun, right? So that's why when I connect with Richard Nelson, I instantly it kindled that fire within me, because I'm thinking along that line. But I have one missing point is the bubbles, right? The liquid bubbles, because the liquid bubble play double role at least, right? It insulate and also it capture the solar thermal energy, So yeah, and the other thing is, as I learned from Richard about this, SolaRoof technology, I know this person, and through him, I got introduced here. I see that so many people are, basically thinking about the same thing, right? How we can, use technology as the tool and then connect people together. So as a collective, human being, the body of human being, that we can make a better world, and then in this world, people interact, right? People, enjoy interacting, learning from each other and sharing from each other, and then, it's just the human aspect, right? So, that's why I feel that, so just actually yesterday we come up with another idea. It's tied up to our own, this PyraPOD thing, but it basically to be able to have something that connect people. So we're going to talk about that, as we, develop that product, and just a tiny little thing that, make it easy for people to connect to each other. So anyway, so I like to add one thing that is, the SolaRoof technology. That the moment I learned about this, I completely absorbed, everything. Then I have this something is such a simple thing, right? Such a genius way of implementing the basic copy from nature, right? It's just how the atmosphere is working, right? Take the thermal energy in and then keep it, right? Keep it inside, so we're warm, right? And we're not like other planet that is, when the sun comes, then it's so hot, right? No one can live there, right? Not even the the microorganism, right? But when there's no sun, it's freezing cold, right? It's almost to the absolute temperature, right? It's minus 100 or something. You know what I mean? So the reason we have this Earth, we don't need to go to Mars. We don't need to go to Mars. Somebody may against me on that point. We just focus on this Earth, the perfect Earth, the atmosphere, everything built for us, right? And it's we could, and if we destroy it, right, then we're gonna end up having war, right? So the conflict between China. I'm from China, right? The China and the United States. So we don't want that to happen, right? Because if human beings act the collective group of people, we do something about it, and starting from growing my own food, right? Starting to use the technology that has been developed a long time ago, so that's my how I see it. So the moment I learned about the SolaRoof technology, I want to use it. Okay, I want to use it for myself, for my family, even start a company, to as an entrepreneur, right? To promote this, but we need to even teach people to do DIY, not just to make money, right? Just actually, to share, this will change everything, how we do things, right? So that's my my fire. You can see I speak, very fast because I have this passion, I see that this could be the starting point, and then as we learn about this and learn other things, we can rethink, how we build a better environment, a better, human society, right? Then within it, we share, it's transparency. It's not a problem. I just set up a camera. I keep it open 24 hours, because that's okay, right? Because we are all open, we are all the same in fact, right? There's something you don't want, I don't want people to see, but you see in some area you don't want to see, right? But we have a lot to share, a lot to, once we create that kind of a, peaceful environment, then you don't have to worry about people breaking in, even breaking in your hard protected house, right? So I had experience, people come in, but he didn't break in. He asked for help, right? I was scared, he because he was appeared to be on drug, but I thought I would be attacked. No, he didn't. He just gave me a bottle of milk. Someone spray the the hot copper juice to on me. I need to a bottle of milk, so I give him a bottle of milk. He just poured the bottle of milk over his head outside my house, and then he left. He said, "Thank you for helping me." You see, I was shocked. I feared actually, because I don't know what he's trying to do, right? But he just want to ask help. See, a lot of time, just want to ask help. Once I don't have a car, I want someone, driving through me. If they can stop and help me get what I want to go, that'd be best, right? But do you get that help? No, a lot of time we don't get the help that we truly need. Everybody care about their own self, right? They're so selfish. They're so isolated in themselves. They don't open themselves, open up, right? And see and perceive, oh, that person is just like me. So I feel, they, getting involved with this group, and I learned a lot, along the way, and I learned to, listen to, in the beginning, I thought, oh, no, just focus on solar roofs, nothing else, because so passionate about this. But then I see, oh yeah, I need to listen to others, right? So I think, through interaction, then we can appreciate each other, right? And understand each other. We can even break the barrier, break the wall, break the conflict, Even I'm praying that even the World War III, they won't take place. Although there's a possibility will take place soon, probably sooner than we expect. If we don't do something positive, right? We don't do something right, then eventually another World War III has to happen, because that's how, that's how, people do, right? They want to just use power to take over land and take over even supremacy, over, on the technology. You see, China is doing fast, right? So everybody's trying to, but I see from Richard Nelson invention is we can do low tech. We can start from low tech, and once we get the low tech ready and get the people ready, then we can slowly add the high tech and use it properly, not to kill, but to bring people into a loving environment, create a loving environment. Everybody is happy, and even make the people, always we have to say no, that alike, attract alike. We cannot say it's uniform. No, it's not uniform. The people only interact with those who have the same capacity, on the same level, right? But at the same time, we have the heart to embrace all, right? I can love my cat, right? I can, whatever, you know what I mean? So that we create that oneness that everyone is craving for, So yeah, anyway, I'm so happy to come here and share my passion. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Albert, you're not only welcome, but you're at home. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew, for setting this up. Yeah.
So Joan Kerr has a presentation, but are there any comments or statements about what Aubrey just shared. Now's that time.
So I went to, first, Aubrey, thank you so much for your presentation and your passion. And it's very interesting. You have a PhD in chemistry, which I found on your website. So
Yeah,
as well as your
chemistry,
humbleness,
actually.
as well as your humbleness. So this idea of being able to take the product to proof of concept, as Richard has said, and what that means maybe. I'm curious about these different climates. Saskatchewan, this idea of being able, where there's actually very low level of radiation per se, and how this kind of technology can be utilized in climates where maybe 2 months of the year there's no sun at all. How do you see that, like, being part of this deployment? Because the temperatures
Okay.
and the solar radiations
Yeah.
are really different in
Yeah.
different locations.
Yeah, what you are asking actually is what we are, when I work for the solar company, we talk about this, right? That's one of the concern, right? But after I got my hand injured, I actually keep watching what they're doing. They are using vacuum solar tubes. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with this, right? And they have the data, to prove that even you have like no sun, right? You have completely cloudy weather, and they can using the solar vacuum tube, because then you have zero loss, right? When you capture the solar thermal energy, you have zero loss because you have vacuum tube, to prevent any teeny bit of leakage, right? So they can achieve still very high temperature. So I mean, I'm sure Richard is more experienced and is the expert on this. But I like to just add my point. The point is we can have other means if we truly need other supplementary source, heat source. We can do that, right? We don't need to use gas. We do not need to use electricity. There is other means, and it's also solar based, right? Based on the free energy, right? So yeah, that's something I'd like to add. Yeah, I'm sure Richard can.
Maybe I could give a quick on that. We do have a super insulation. Of course, like in Norway, they used 40 inches of bubble insulation. And they were using lamps, in winter, of course, which you would use to extend the day so short. And they found, like, at minus 20 Celsius, right, that using kind of a overheating situation. And so effectively, the bubbles are the key. It's always the loads. We reduce the heat and cooling load first. Then there's the issue of how do you respond to the remaining load, right? There's always a remaining load.
But I think, not to interrupt you, Richard, but I think I didn't communicate well. I'm talking about the photosynthesis of growing the plants. And you say we can have the lights in, but that's where it wasn't as much heating and cooling as it was the photosynthesis process.
Yeah, you definitely need lamps in the far north, right? And then, of course, above the use the lamps and generate electricity. So we're like taking the solar gain of the summer, the excess, and what you can convert into a few store and carry that over and use to generate electricity. So we use the fuel cells. We use the mass cell fuel cells, 30–50% convert. I have a comment, it's basically, Joan, about how communities all over the world have these constraints. and their food systems are failing. So we're having tens of millions of people who are becoming actually to, relocate. Situations are pretty extreme, even in wealthy Western country like California, where we see, huge loss of production because of water constraints. We have fires, we have heat. I know people living in California who used to have vegetable gardens through the summer, and now they just stop. It's like they can't, be out in the garden. Actually, it's so darn hot. So we have all these constraints, and what we don't have, the agriculture universities are really frozen in a filling mode. We know that their whole supposition is producing food with monocrops, with mechanization, vast mechanization. We forget how big this mechanization is. It's over 5 billion hectares around the world. And so that all takes oil to run, right? All the tractors and all the mechanization. And people say, well, we could do it, with organic method. But we then kind of think about that kind of romantically, that suddenly everyone can be out producing food because the labor component is there, right? Don't forget the mechanization replaces what we used to have, kind of human slavery, right? To produce the grains and so on. So, so we need breakthrough. So I come back to that 10 times, 10 times result for 10 times less effort as well. And inputs, right? Because the inputs are super critical at this time. So I'd like to give you numbers, a couple of numbers. When we're dealing in grains, we're getting about 0.1 of pounds per foot per year. Okay, this says a number. That's productivity from grains. As you go into production of, let's say, organic vegetables in the field, field production, like Whole Foods, has suppliers that produce vast amount of food, and they're mechanized, but they're using organic method as far as that's regulated. You can get about 1 pound per square foot per year, let's say, producing leafy vegetables and in the field. When you go into the greenhouse, with current greenhouses, right, you'll push that up to 10 pounds. So greenhouse production is much more productive than field production. It's well demonstrated. When you come into a year-round vertical farm of my type of concept, right, and which is related to other vertical farming and other intensive food, you can push that up to 100 pounds, possibly. Certainly to 50. That's 5 times, but actually we can probably go quite a bit higher than that. And these are not speculative, right? These are real hard numbers. If you have master growers in inner cities, doing their food programs, right? There's quite a few of examples of that. And that's your gardens, right? And they're able to produce that sometimes as much as 10 pounds per square foot. That's with quite a bit of inputs, inputs, right? Management and time. So you could push that up from what would be a field culture getting 1 pound and push it up to around 10 pounds with really quality management input. So these are basically the parameters. The question is, how do we replace the calories that are going to fail, representing 70% of the global calories for people? And as we go forward in the next 10, 20 years, and as the population increases towards 10 billion, like adding at least another 2 billion people, and not only that, another at least 1 billion urbanized people, so maybe 3 billion going into cities, where reducing the production on the land, which is, you know, self-sufficient growers, you know, who do put intensive management in and grow for their family and close community. You know, this is a traditional culture, like in Africa, still existing. But that's changing. So they will be pushed into the urban centers. And the reason is that the agribusiness, to keep their business operating, are looking for another 1 billion hectares. And they're going to find that in Africa and in South America, in terms of, you know, deforesting the Amazon and the Congo and other areas. And it's happening. And they're looking for that further 1 billion acres because they're losing also about 1 billion acres, even to stand still. So it's very much like the fuel, the fossil energy business. Why do they look for unconventional fossil energy? That's like deep ocean, you know, and Siberian and fracking and all these unconventional energy, because they're running out of fossil energy. You know, we have passed peak production. You know, we keep, I think people lose the thread of the story. Why we're in alternate energy, you know, why was I starting alternate energy in the 80s, you know, and the people around us, because they were already projecting when the fossil energy would run out. That's why. Now we think a lot about CO2 and climate change. It's almost become the more driving thing. But these are the big parameters, and nobody's modeling it.
Yeah. Sure. I'm sorry. I just want to say I so agree we need a plan, because I function really well in accomplishments, you know, and knowing this is the plan, this is what we've done, and then that's the way you can evaluate what has happened, what worked, what didn't work, what, you know, what are other ideas. So sorry if I interrupted, but I guess it's my functionality more than anything, but since we have so many people, it makes it easy for everyone to see what has happened and to justify or re-strategize what needs to happen. So unfortunately, I have to run. I had put two hours in. I thought that was good, but I'll have to go in about 5 minutes. So I just want to say that this is so enlightening. And if we have a project plan, I'd be super happy.
So Salim Talbot, are you there, available? Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Well, yes, but your fan looks wonderful. We love the way it's going around and around in circles. But
I thought you would like my fan. Well,
where's the Truman?
We
want the Truman, so. Yeah, the Truman.
I'm afraid I don't have a cradle to rest my phone in, but to hold it up. If it's more appropriate, then I'll do so.
No, well, as long as you just say hello, you can then just turn it off. But I did want to let everyone know that Bermuda is somewhere I've visited there in 2012, and I was very shocked to find that you're importing 98% of your food and 98% of your energy there in Bermuda. But I also am very much glad that you're here at Salim, because as I understand it, anniversary coming up, and you are in fact the place there at the crossroads in Bermuda that may actually have an opportunity to have an example of this PyraPOD or SolaRoof in Bermuda that can in fact feed the community and yourself. But let me shut up and let you introduce yourself, Salim.
Okay. Greetings, everyone. I didn't prepare any type of presentation. I actually came to listen, to learn from all of your esteemed, I guess, presenters and so on. I joined a little bit late because I was waiting for someone to call me and then invite me as normal. That's fine. I just want to say that, I guess, first and foremost, I know that Andrew knows very well that the primary goal that I have is to unify people, to gather people together, and the tribes, the countries, people, to recognize the importance of human fraternity. And so, for example, back in, was that December 2019, myself as director of the Bermuda Islamic Cultural Center and the Emir of the center, I met with Bishop West, who's a Catholic priest, and we sat down and had talks and dialogue to see what we can do to bring our congregations together and to demonstrate on Bermuda, which is a very tiny place, but has everyone present from every country, every nationality, etc., to demonstrate that indeed we're going to work together as human beings to find common ground. So that was the idea, and we signed an agreement based on the agreement signed by Pope Francis and the Imam of Al-Azhar, and we replicated that model. And it's a document which is called the Document on Human Fraternity. I invite anyone who's interested to read the document. It's a wonderful document because it talks about humanity being one, yes, but people working together on economic projects, on social projects that are meaningful, and getting to know each other, Bermuda is that kind of place, and that's why we refer to it as a crossroads country. We're in the middle of the Atlantic. We don't have any our closest neighbor, because we're in the quote unquote north of the, I want to say north of the Caribbean, West Indies. Most people, they figure we're just sort of in the cluster of the West Indian Islands, our southern neighbors, but nowhere high up north. And in fact, our closest neighbor of the people in the North Carolina. So we're actually on the 99% of the islands to our south, in that we have Black people, we have brown people, we have yellow people, we have white people, and we don't live in segregated neighborhoods. The country is too small. So we bump into each other regularly, all the time, I would say. And so we put together, for example, a small, tiny sort, and I shared it with Andrew, and I think he sort of liked it. I guess it's called The Power of One. It wasn't too bad, was it? And I hope so. I invite you to do so. The Power of One is a very small clip, and it's talking about the goal of unifying people together, diverse, religious, and irreligious people, diverse racial and financial elements of society within a given country and around the world. And the objective is to achieve peace and social economic justice, of course. It's not a question of just having a nice conversation. We believe that people can work together if they can only get to know each other well, you see? Because in some societies, like America is a very big country, as an example, very often you will not find a Black person that even really knows a white person. They've seen white folks, for example, and maybe vice versa, but never worked with, didn't go to school with them in elementary or high school or in the university. Although there's, of course, maybe 10 or 15% that would be different from that. But my point is that it's important that people get to know each other, and that's our goal, and that is to unify people and to emphasize human fraternity. So here in Bermuda, we try to do that, for example, through our Crossroads football club. It's called Crossroads Warriors FC. It's a competitive team. We play in the Premier Division, and our team is diverse. I mean, we have recreational teams. We do very well. We've been in existence almost 25 years. So it's not a sort of one, it actually exists. And people are made to feel like a family, which is the idea that the human fraternity. It's enshrined in our mission statement from the very beginning 30 years ago. It's not something like today. It's a very popular sort of statement. But this organization was founded on the principle of human equality. So we have that. Our coaching staff, as soon as a person demonstrates these leadership aspects, then he's put to work right away. They can help with the coaching staff for the younger ones. So even age 16 from on up, they are part of the programs, because not everybody is going to become a competitive football player, but it doesn't matter because we can use it administratively and otherwise. And some who have the talent for coaches, they can do that. The parents, they're heavily involved, especially at the youth level, in the organization itself, on game day and in training sessions. And Andrew, you saw some of that last week with a small clip. There are tons of parents and children there simultaneously. And of course, the fans. The fans love the organization because it's based on this basic motto, which is knowledge, faith, and victory. And in terms on a social level, we operate on the basis of food security from the beginning, the halal food, healthy food. It's not a question of just giving people food, although in some cases, in desperate situations during war, I'm sure anything will do, even if it was a spider or anything. But I'm saying, if in those extreme conditions, we provide healthy food for the people, because we believe that food can actually be your medicine. And I'm sure the people in the health field, they understand that. So we have a food bank during the COVID stages, especially the early stages. We were able to provide food for families in the neighborhood and throughout the island. Also, we have a feeding program once a week, minimally. We try to go and deliver food to our capacity to people who are actually needy, the elderly, and other people who are not in good economic situation. I guess in business-wise, definitely, we use the model of Islamic finance. That means that we don't charge people interest. We help with money, they pay it back, and they pay back the same amount they borrowed. It was just to help them out. We try to help people, whoever they are, regardless of religion, race, etc. But I'm saying if it's an economic project, then they profit share, but there's no interest. So that means there's no predatory relationship between the lender and the borrower, as an example. We have retail and wholesale business. It's again operates on the same and even more detailed ethicals, which I won't take up your valuable time today. But other than that, we believe that technology should be used to educate people, just like you're doing in this forum, which is a great forum. And last but not least, because you probably, why is in this chat? Well, we do believe in the community gardens concept, because as one of your presenters said, sometimes when things go wrong, like with this coronavirus thing, the ships stop coming, the aircraft stop flying, so you better be able to somewhat be able to feed your people. And Bermuda, there's no reason why you can't feed the people, because it's an island. We're surrounded by food, i.e. the fish and the other forms of food in the ocean. But you have to have the knowledge and the technology to be able to sustainably gather it and distribute it amongst the people. So aside from the fish, for example, we believe that vertical farming is ample because it's a very tiny country. So we don't have a lot of acreage that we can plow up and use to plant vegetables and so on. But the vertical farming makes it efficient and even perhaps profitable. And last but not least, schools, we funded an alternative school it was a pilot actually, in 2014, was very successful. A small number of students, we took them in from age elementary school up to high school, about 16. I think the oldest student was about 17 years. And anyway, it was a very challenging curriculum. I say challenging. It was an invigorating curriculum because my own background is in physics and science and math. So we emphasize almost like that STEM sort of learning, but with a twist, you know, because we also emphasize ethics and spiritual background. So
the one thing that I don't see on our solution is a water strategy.
I'd like to add some quick comment, you know, concerning the Excretion and also concerning Bermuda.
right ahead.
One thing is we already have someone promoting PyraPOD, you know, it's another version, it's called Spark, you know. So in Bermuda, and promote to school system, you know, because it's a very good education tool, right?
Okay.
Concerning John's question about water solution and earthquake, if you go to our website, PyraPOD.com,
Okay.
you'll learn everything to consider. This is the safest building that human being has ever conceived, right? But and unfortunately, we're not still using it. You know, it's earthquake proof. You know, and I did aquaponics, so water solution, and you know, even evaporation. We can collect water, distill water, in this type.
And you're talking about drinkable water or water?
Oh yes, oh yes,
okay.
Yeah. Well, that's
Okay.
too much to talk, but for this
Okay.
session, right? But a
Well, the
lot
water has
can
to
be achieved. Yeah.
Okay. Again, I'm open to to listen to whatever you're speaking about. But as they say,
so
the proof
smart.
is in the pudding.
Yeah.
We just try it.
And then instantly he has the whole structure, and because you want to test.
Interesting enough,
right?
I actually have a container in my backyard. And and I have a son who's a welder. In fact, he welds underwater, and I have a brother
Oh, okay.
who's also a welder. So it's not
Yeah.
that hard to fabricate things. You see.
Yeah, so make it portable is very doable, very easy actually. It's lightweight. You can make it lightweight, if you want.
Well, sounds excellent. And oh yeah, I think I've seen that. Maybe Corn or somebody wants to. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay,
go there,
I'll go.
a lot
So-
to watch, a lot to
Yeah.
read.
So, Andrew, if I could just close up with my questions. So I just look at the, thank you, Aubrey, for answering my question. So the go forward for next week. I agree with the Colonel that we need to do an action plan. So I don't know if you and Lloyd maybe want to talk about that. And a greenhouse and a chicken coop. Those are existing projects that these things can actually happen, and we can
Yes.
collect data for them for this project. So we're good to go like right away. So
Okay.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
It
So
sounds good.
what would be the next steps to do that? I guess would be that's my question. And I'll close my mouth for now. No speeches.
No, don't do that.
Well, Joan, what I like for you to do is take the lead from as we go along. So that would suggest, Joan.
So
Let's do.
to be clear, you mean for Tanzania and Zimbabwe for my projects? You mean? I'm happy to do that. I'm more than happy to do that.
Then that's the answer. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And yes.
I will do that, and I'm gonna start using your yes and yes and yes. So I'll have something for next week. Is that okay?
Or sooner.
Or sooner,
Oh,
yeah.
sooner. Okay, sooner is good. All right.
Now is better.
Done.
Now is better.
Done. Well, I won't promise today, but this week sometime.
Hi, it's Andra, and I guess I'm just with Lloyd, so I didn't really have much to say. So I'm just kind of following along and seeing maybe where I can help out. And I guess my thinking is I think we need a new type of economy to, motivate us to do some of the things that we need to do.
You're right
on a
on.
more
New economy.
So yeah, some that's with the current economy, not necessarily we need a complete change, but something that supports what we already have in a more sustainable way. So I like to see where this project goes. It'd be great to see how we can envision a better way of living and a way that uses, hopefully less energy, less resources,
For sure.
but also captures the things that we as humans value, like the connection, the ability to be in nature. So the ability to live sustainably and all of what that entails. That includes the education, that includes living on the planet with everyone else. So,
Yeah, well said.
hard to envision a better way of living, but I think we have to, if we can put a demonstration that we can show the world that, hey, this works, you can see yourself living in it. I think that is a way that we can get a lot more traction
Yes.
by that as a demonstration site. But also we want to keep an eye on scalability, that whatever we build has the potential to scale.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's going to fit in multiple environments. So that's kind of all I want to say.
Great, Andre. Thank you so much.
Hi. I think I'm back on here. It's Richard, but it looks like a long number or something because I'm on my phone. So I'm on my phone, but I have been listening. I have been enjoying. It's been a long run, but it's been worth every minute. And yeah, we'll get going through the week, and we'll have a lot of good things to do next week.
Right.